Good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order at 6:30, and this is the August 10th meeting of the Worthington Board of Education. Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Costa Flowers.
Present.
Mrs. Davis.
Present.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Present.
Ms. Harless.
Present.
Mrs. Hudson is absent.
Well, again, hello. Thank you for joining us. I am this year's president, Amber Epling Skinner. I'd like to introduce my fellow board members. Here beside of me, we have board member Kelly Davis, treasurer TJ Cusick, superintendent Dr. Trip Bowers, vice president of the board Stephanie Harless, and board member Sheena Costa Flowers. If you're able, please stand and let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That brings us to the part of the agenda where we approve the agenda. Could I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, any amendments to the agenda for tonight? All right, Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Costa Flowers.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Motion carries and the agenda is approved. I don't believe we have any visitor comments signed up for this evening, so just moving right along, I will introduce at this time Assistant Superintendent Jeff Maddox to come up and introduce our presenter for this evening. Mr. Maddox.
Good evening, everyone. Before I introduce Sarah, I want to take a minute to reflect on where we have been and how we have gotten here. Phase 1 and Phase 2 have been two really important chapters in a long-term planning for the Worthington schools. Through Phase 1, we renovated all 4 of our middle schools, moved to 6-8 grade configuration, and made a significant district-wide investment in technology through the 2018 bond issue. Phase 2 built on that work. We renovated both of our high schools and made improvements to athletics and recreation facilities across the district. That work was made possible through the 2022 bond issue, and it's nearing completion. None of this happens without the incredible support of our community. I really want to take a moment tonight to simply say thank you. The investment our community has made in our schools, our students, and our staff has been unbelievable, and we are incredibly grateful for the trust and support. Tonight, we begin the next chapter in Phase 3. This phase is focused on our elementary schools and preschool facilities, but just as importantly, it is about listening to our community. Over the next 24 months, our goal is to have meaningful conversations, gather input, explore options, and ultimately develop a thoughtful plan that reflects the values and priorities of the Worthington schools. We have spent a lot of time preparing for tonight. We've met more than a half dozen times as a small planning team to make sure we are thoughtful about how to begin the process. I want to recognize Rob Messenheimer, Vicki Nesda, Jeff Ebley, Harley Graham, Don Taylor, all from the Worthington schools, and Sarah, Jamie Green, and Ethan Lauer from Planning Next for the time and thought they have already invested into this work. And with that, I'm excited to introduce Sarah Bongiorno from Planning Next, who will help lead us through the process and most importantly, help us listen to our community. Sarah, I turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jeff. Good evening. It's so exciting to be here with you all tonight, launching the Phase 3 work. So I have a presentation here. I'm going to go over, and Jeff already gave us a good kind of background on where we've been, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about more where we're heading, and then I'm happy to answer any questions when we get to the end of the presentation. So again, introduction and background, we're going to review our process committees, give you a good overview of our engagement approach for this Phase 3 and our timeline, and then again, we'll do Q&A at the end. So Jeff hit on this, so I won't take too much time, but again, our Phase 1 was focused on the middle schools. It was funded by the 2018 bond issue, and it shifted to that 6 to 8 grade configuration. It also completed a district-wide technology update as part of that Phase 1. Phase 2, of course, has been focused on the high schools. It also improved a range of sports and recreation facilities funded by that 2022 bond issue, which leads us to Phase 3, which is really focused on the facilities for our youngest learners in the district, the elementary schools and the pre-K. We're really looking to build upon what worked really well in the past processes. We want to make sure that everybody in the community feels heard and has an opportunity to get involved and share their ideas. So we've mapped this out in roughly a 2-year process, leading to a spring of 2028 recommendation. There's a couple different inputs that are going to inform this Phase 3 process. We've got some updated building assessments that have been completed more recently to give us a good understanding of the condition of the existing buildings. We also have a very recent space usage study that shares a little bit more about how the buildings and facilities are currently being utilized. And of course, our community engagement, which we're really going to dive into tonight. And we're going to set up some process committees and then opportunities for the general community as well. I'm going to first talk about our process committees. They're very important. They're a foundational piece to this work, and they're going to be really lockstep with us through this process. I don't know if you can, hopefully this graphic shows. There's some small text, so I apologize for that. But this is kind of showing the ecosystem of the roles and responsibilities of each of these process committees. We're showing the general public because they're very important, and we want to make sure we are having opportunities for the general public to engage. But we're also putting together what we're calling a task force, about a 50-member group. They're going to be serving as that sounding board and really helping us take the input we're hearing from the general public, help us analyze that and interpret that in order to move forward. We're then going to have an advisory committee. This is going to be a subset of the task force. They're really going to provide that more detailed direction that we need. And of course, our core team, the planning team that Jeff mentioned, we've been meeting with, that's district administration. As the facilitator, Planning Next will be working across all of these groups to really facilitate and be that neutral convener for this process. So I want to talk a little bit about how we're putting these different groups together, because there was a lot of intentionality and thought that went into how these groups are going to be put together. So for the task force, again, this is the broader 50-person group. We're going to go about that in 2 ways. The first is a nomination process. Invitations will be sent to community organizations within the district. Those community organizations will have the opportunity to nominate a representative to serve on this task force. We've worked closely with Vicki to develop the list based on the previous phases to make sure we've really got a broad group of those community organizations. We're then going to balance that out with an open application process, what we're calling, which is really focused on open to any resident in the school district. It's really making sure that we've got a representative group that looks and is from different parts of the community. This application will be publicized broadly across the district website and social media. We're looking for about 12 residents that will be chosen through a blind selection process. And the selection is really going to be a demographic-based and geographic-based selection. We have a diversity matrix that we use to make these selections. So we're really trying to make sure that this group represents the larger community of Worthington. And then the advisory committee. So again, this task force is going to be a pretty big group, but we're going to ask them to nominate 5 to 6, what we're calling co-chairs, that will join the core team and provide this smaller advisory committee that's really going to provide that direction and kind of keep things moving along and give direction to the consultant team as we move through this process. Okay, so I'm going to overview our engagement approach, and we're going to deep dive a little bit on this first round of engagement that we're going to be focusing on first coming up in the spring. So the engagement's really happening in 2 ways. We have the task force. They're going to have, consistent work sessions that provide that in-depth feedback. They're going to roll up their sleeves. We're going to put them to work. This is not sort of a blue ribbon committee. We're going to really ask them to lean in and help us interpret that community engagement and provide us that good sounding board of the work. We're going to have that broad community engagement as well, open to the public, and will happen in 2 rounds. Right now, we're planning a first round in spring of this coming spring, and then round 2 in fall of '27. So I'm going to unpack each of these four kind of components, but we really believe that if you're going to get robust engagement, you're going to get everyone involved, you have to offer a lot of different ways to do that. Think of layering up different opportunities. Right now, everybody can come out to an evening meeting. Not everyone wants to maybe do it online. So we're going to have a lot of different options. This little mini schedule here really just shows that we're going to start some of that preparation work now, getting organized for focus group meetings, but it's really going to ramp up in the spring there of January, February, March, where we have the school hop, engagement hubs, and online survey happening. And I'm going to unpack each of these here in a second. So the first one is what we're calling the school hop. This would be a tour and open house at all of the elementary schools in the preschool building. There's going to be a combination of things happening at each of these events. The first would be the tour itself. This is really important for community members who might not be familiar with the condition of the current school facilities. They might not have kids in the school district at all, or they might have kids who have gone through the schools and they haven't gone back into the elementary schools for a while. So the tours will be an important component. But we also want to have some educational display opportunities as well, where we're going to provide key information about the district, that particular school building, highlight some benchmarks from the region. There's been some other school districts that have done recent upgrades and facility work, and so sharing some of those best practices as well. And then importantly, the engagement activities. So again, this is a listening and learning opportunity, so we want to make sure we have opportunities for people to share their input. We're really trying to understand values and priorities about the future of the elementary school buildings, and so that will be happening at these events as well. And again, those are right now scheduled for February, March of '27. Focus groups. We want to facilitate some small group discussions with key stakeholders, including all of you. We'd like to do one-on-one interviews with all the school board members as part of this component. And then other small group meetings with key stakeholders could include PTA groups, future parents, teachers and staff, youth, things like that. We're still putting those groups together, but we want to make sure we have an opportunity to get with some key stakeholders specifically as part of this first round. And then we're also have a concept called engagement hubs. This is a drop-in kind of anytime key locations across the district. This will provide an ongoing opportunity for residents to drop in at their own on their own leisure. Locations will be strategically placed across the district at easily accessible locations. They will be designed to be standalone. So again, anyone can stop and review the information, provide their input, but they could be staffed by some of our task force members as well to kind of engage more people and sort of draw people in. And then, of course, we do have an online engagement component as well. We want to create online opportunities that mimic those in-person opportunities as much as we can, so that if someone doesn't feel comfortable coming out or can't come out, they can get online and provide their input as well. Those online activities will run throughout each round of the engagement. Okay, so how all this is going to lay out across the 2 years. This is showing pretty small, but I'm not gonna go through it line by line, but generally we're in this preparation kind of component here. We're establishing the task force and the advisory committees and getting those groups seated this fall. We're gonna start preparing for our first round of engagement. We're really gonna launch that with the community in January, and then really be ramping that up in February and March. If you'll notice that the way this is kind of laid out is we're going to be doing work with the task force and the advisory committee, and then we'll be going out into community, testing with community, understanding what their values are and what they're sharing with us, and then taking that back to the task force and the advisory committee as a sounding board to kind of help us interpret. So there is this sort of flow to the work. So we'll get through our first round of engagement. April, we'll be processing what we heard. Again, we'll be taking that back to the task force and the advisory committee. And then quickly in the summer of next year, we will be ramping up for that second round of engagement. Again, it's iterative. So we want to take what we heard in the first round, work with our committees, and then go back out quickly to sort of keep the attention, the momentum of the community. So that will happen in the fall. We'll have a couple more task force meetings towards the end of that year. And then January 20, we really will be focusing on again, putting our heads down and writing and pulling the plan together to hit that May 2028 recommendation point. We are planning 2 formal updates to the school board after each round of engagement. So we'll come back, we'll share who we heard from and what we heard from people, some of those key takeaways, and kind of bring you along as we go through the process. So for your role, we would love for a representation from this group to serve on the task force, to kind of be that liaison and kind of have a front row seat to the process. We also would invite you to participate in the one-on-one interviews with our consultant team. And then we really invite you to help us not only spread the word about the community engagement and make sure folks, know that this is an opportunity to get involved, but also to come out and engage through any of those means that we shared earlier when we do our engagement rounds. So what's next? We're ready. We're ready to launch the application process for the task force. That will be going out, I think, Wednesday of this week. Invitations from Trent will be going out to the community organizations. We're working with Vicky to get things out through the website and the social media, so people will know this is an opportunity to serve in this role. We have a project website that's also live, and I'll click on it here in a minute and can share it a little bit with you. We are moving into that detailed planning for round one, beginning now, and we'd love to start scheduling those one-on interviews with you all as well. So I'm gonna see if this will, oh look, I love when it works. Okay, so this is our website. We are calling this Together We Plan Phase 3. We have some fun kind of elementary kind of fun colors, since this is about the elementary school buildings. So we have some general information on here about what this is. People can leave a comment or a question for us. There's some FAQs just about the process in general. I want to show this tab though. This is an important tab. We are putting some information up here. And this could grow as we go through the process, but right now we've got some base information about each elementary school with a photo, an overview, and there's some definitions there. So people can start to get to know the buildings within the district if they're not familiar. This Get Involved tab will be where we'll put more information about the opportunities that people can get involved with. So again, this will be where our engagement hub happens. Anything that we need to communicate, that sort of call to action out in the community, will happen in this Get Involved tab as well. Right now we have the information about the task force on here because we are going to be launching that here this week. Any questions? Anything? I know I went through that pretty fast, but any questions? Anything you'd love to chat about? I'm happy to answer anything.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions? Who wants to go first? I'm sure we all have thoughts. Stephanie?
Okay. I have a list, I'm sorry. This is really in no particular order. And honestly, I have some questions like that I want you guys to have a discussion because I don't know some of this stuff. And it's all coming out of my brain only. First, very minor. Do you normally, when you do websites, put like school district branding or city branding or whatever? When I look at this, it makes me nervous that people won't know that it's
affiliated with this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, typically we do like to have a brand or a name for the initiative. It kind of differentiates it from whatever else is going on in the school district. We do have at the bottom in the footer, and again, you got to get all the way down there, but we do have the logo. So it is loosely affiliated, but it is trying to kind of be its own thing within the district. Yeah.
Okay. We had talked about not calling it Phase 3 because we didn't know how long that was going to be. Did we land back on Phase 3? Kind of looking at Trent.
Yeah, I don't know if we landed or didn't land. I think we would kind of defer to planning next for that part of that conversation. So the history on that is we came out with in 2015 what we thought was going to be a 3-phase master facility plan. So that the task force at that time, or the board, accepted what was potentially a 3-phase. What we think now is potentially there will have to be more phases just based on where costs are. But this technically still would be number 3. So, we could discuss that from a...
Yeah, I think from an engagement standpoint and working with the elementary schools, I think our approach was like this component of it and engaging people about the elementary schools is in Phase 3. What you might have to actually do once we get through this and we know what the plan is, that might be Phase 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think my pause was around, this is going to cost money that we're going to have to ask people probably for on the ballot. Yeah. And it probably will be a multi-phase or whatever we want to call it approach, right? And so I don't want to engage in this process and have people think that we will go through this 2-year plan, come up with a
Yeah.
plan, present the plan, ask for one thing, and then away we go, in
Yeah.
4 years or whatever, because this is going to take quite some time.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, I don't know if you could say phase 3 and beyond, or
Yeah.
something to indicate that as we're having conversations, it could be, this, I'm just throwing things out there. Like this group of schools and then this group of, or renovations first and then reconstructions later. Just however it goes, if it turns out that something can't happen all at once.
Yeah.
I want people to be able to go into the conversation thinking long-term,
Yeah.
just very forward thinking in a way. So
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's important. We can, I'll look back through our FAQs. We might be able to add a little something to make sure that we're managing expectations, I think, with that. And I think as the process unfolds and we actually have a plan, that'll be also time to kind of remind people of that. So we'll be mindful of that. I appreciate that comment.
Okay. Also, just another question. Again, I am not a marketing person, so just thinking through how I'm consuming this information. When I went to the website, and so engaging with the community is perfect. We have some elementary schools that, when we had the conversation around the high school, we really needed to do it because there were things that were not great that were, potentially health concerns, right? We're not there with the elementary schools, but I don't know if there's a way in our messaging to kind of tip our hat to the fact that, it's not just thinking about being the next biggest and brightest thing. We've got facilities, and you did address that in the FAQ further down, but I'm thinking, right, this is a difficult conversation again, and this all comes back to asking for resources in the community, right? It's a difficult conversation to have, and I just want to make sure that we are presenting this in a way that, we'll be mindful of the ask, but also we have a variety of schools that have not been touched for a number of years. We have kids in modulars, those sorts of things. And I don't know how you do that in a brief statement, but.
Yeah, but there's different conditions, different years built. One thing I forgot to mention that I think is important is we are going to have an architect serve on the task force, not the architect that will necessarily be involved later on and when you get through in design and construction, but the architect that did the assessments, because we do think it's important to have somebody who can kind of offer that layer of realisticness of this when we start to think about what to do and what level to kind of engage at with each building. So we'll be mindful of that, and maybe if there's a way to make sure that we're being clear on that messaging, I'll look back at that FAQ.
I guess I'm all about messaging today. Messaging. I've got another so when I looked at the graphic that was talking about the sounding board, and it says a couple times the task force sounding board.
Yep.
My initial understanding of what that task force was going to do was going to be slightly more instructive, maybe not instructive, but they were going to have a little bit more decision-making power around recommendations. Sounding board to me is a very passive act, and I didn't know if you guys, again, this is me maybe just hearing it in a different way, so I don't know if if that resonates with anybody or.
So you're talking about the specific task.
The task force, branding them as a sounding board versus having an advisory function.
No. So there's different levels, right?
Yeah.
And so there's the task force, and then there's the advisory, who the task force picks.
Right, but I think, and maybe this also goes back to the flow of information and
Let me go
I'm
back
really
to
down
that
in the weeds,
slide.
guys, I'm sorry.
No,
That graphic and thinking about showing how the information is going to flow, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
right now, sounding board is this core team and the advisory committee make decisions and bounce those off of the task force. And I don't necessarily think that's I don't think there's a unidirectional flow of information.
Okay, so I read it differently. I took it as the task, and correct me if I'm wrong, the task force, I can see how you're seeing it that way, let me say that. And then I read it as the task force then gives information to the advisory committee, which is composed of those 12 people and the core team. And then they expand upon what has been discussed at the task force. Is that?
Yeah,
Is that
I
how
think generally we're going from the broad to the specific, right? So we're going to go out to community, we're going to get thousands of pieces of input, and we're going to help make sense of that, and we're going to look at it, and we're going to pull out where we think people are really coalescing around certain values or ideas, right? But we want to bring that to the task force and say, we're going to have you look at all the input. They're going to actually roll up their sleeves, look at the input. They might interpret it a little differently because they're here in the community and they say that comment's about a specific thing that's going on in that school or whatever. We won't have all of that inside knowledge. That's why we have them, right? So they're going to help us interpret. They're going to help bring it from here in a little bit more focus. But then 50 people still, a pretty big group. They might not all agree, but they're going to then make a recommendation. Like, we think that this is sort of the direction, right? But then that advisory committee is really that, they're going to have more of the sort of direction, but they're not going to just do their own thing. They're going to take what comes from them from the task force.
And that is 100% how I read it.
Okay.
That doesn't say sounding board to me, and I'm
Okay.
only saying this because
Yeah.
it is so critical
Yeah.
that we have community engagement, but not just engagement that they know that we are taking all of that information and synthesizing it and listening
Yep.
to knowing that not everybody agrees, but that
Right.
we don't have a predetermined
there's
course of action,
yes,
right?
exactly.
And it's really important that people understand that and that
Yeah.
we need their input. That's the only reason I'm going down
Okay.
this path.
So
Yeah.
Stephanie, why don't we then work on exactly how that flows?
Yeah.
And then we can
Okay.
communicate it better, that's clear
Yeah.
on the website?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Let's do that. Yeah, we'll work on that language a little bit and make sure that flow of information is clear.
Okay. If the recommendations that come out of this result in us asking for money on the ballot, when do we have to have that decision made if it were to happen in 2028?
It's generally around August.
Okay.
1st or so.
Okay.
I'd have to look because the different elections have different times, but I'll get back to you. But it's generally
Okay.
around August 1st.
It's fine. I just didn't know how that coincided with the May date. That was the only reason.
I actually have that in my emails.
August of
We
27.
we usually go out ahead of that, though. I will
28.
say, I mean, typically we've made that decision in the spring before school gets out, historically what we're.
Yeah, which is so around that May. Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay. I'm almost through these. Oh, this is very minor and really, I don't know if you've ever done this before. When I think about the people that are probably going to either be impacted or really invested in the elementary school projects, they probably many of them don't live here yet.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so I'm wondering if there's any way to capture what are you looking for in an elementary school sort of feedback? I know you referenced it in Worthington
Yeah.
schools, but potentially outside of the district, just
Yeah.
thinking about.
Yeah, we can think about that a little bit more. This is tricky because it's the future parents, right?
Right.
So we said that as a stakeholder group, but if that's going to some daycare centers, if that is going outside and doing more of like a poll that's more broader, we can definitely talk more about that. Yeah.
Okay. I really like the idea of the engagement hubs. I'm excited to see where we can have opportunities to put those and get
Yeah.
feedback. And then when we talk about the task force, I know there's one person that will sit on it. Is there opportunity for, and maybe this isn't for you, would there be opportunity for those not on the task force to passively listen in so that just we have a general idea of, it's going to be, it makes me nervous to make decisions based on hearing 2 feedback sessions, which is not your fault. I just would like as much information as possible. Do you think we can do that?
So you talked about other opportunities for engagement. So like maybe even as they're doing small group discussions, and I'm thinking of like CLC and the key communicators, that will hear maybe those presentations and that information at those times, then maybe we can also go to the different hubs and the engagement hubs and other opportunities outside of the task force meetings. I would like to suggest for us to have a person and maybe an alternate or 2 people, if we're willing to do that. I'm not raising my hand because I'm going to be rather occupied in the next 2 years. But, so that we do make sure that we always have someone there. But that's the only thing I would add to that. But will there be I didn't mean to interrupt you, but are there other opportunities outside of that?
Yeah, I think in this first round, definitely the one-on-one interviews will be a good opportunity. Coming to engage in any of the open call engagement opportunities are really, I think, the best options to get involved. And like you said, there might be some other community organizations that have some interaction that you might hear some presentations through. We're happy to work with Jeff if we think more frequent updates to you all is important. But we're really going to be laying that foundation, and there really isn't that much to share back out until we get out in there in community and start hearing from people. But we'll make sure that we are, keeping an open line of
And even
communication.
sharing, I think maybe just sharing the feedback in written form, it may be enough too. I think it'd be helpful for us in our decision-making process, because this is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Like, this
Yeah,
is a big
it's a big
ask.
deal. Yeah.
So that's all I have. The only thing that I will say, and I'm sure that all of my fellow board members would echo this, but obviously the community engagement piece is really important for us. And reaching the areas of our community that don't always step up or have a voice or have the opportunity to speak is critically important.
Yep.
And so whatever we can do to prioritize reaching those areas of the district would be probably one of the highest priorities, because I think it's really important that we incorporate everybody.
Yes, no, I appreciate that comment. When we go out and engage folks for any kind of planning purpose in all communities across the country, we really focus in on making sure that we understood who we heard from. So we have a really short participation survey, kind of a tell us about yourself, that depending on the format, it comes in different ways, but a really quick, maybe they snap a QR code on their phone, answer 3 quick questions. We look at that to make sure that from a demographic standpoint, geography standpoint, that we're getting that representation. And we will match that back to the census data for the district. So we'll know if we've missed an area of the district or a certain age cohort or a certain race. So we'll be tracking that as best we can. Not everybody chooses to, it's voluntary to give that information, of course. And it's all anonymous, but we will look at that to try to make sure that we are reaching out. And we have been mindful, we've had conversations with the core team so far about making sure from a geography standpoint that we're really reaching out, because we know the district is bigger than the city of Worthington, so we need to really make sure we're reaching out, so, yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
So you're saying you'll track it and then make additional efforts to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if we see there's a gap, then we're going to go back to our task force and say, hey, can you help us? How can we go, and we'll strategize. So we also like to have, if you see the engagement, spanning multiple months, that's what it takes these days. It's a lot to get, folks to get involved, but also it allows us to we'll track real time, so we can make adjustments, we can be flexible, we can, put a little more emphasis over on this side of town if we need to. So we'll kind of be really navigating in real time, if you will. Thank you.
Kelly, you want to go next? Sheena?
Thank you, Sarah. I like Stephanie, have a little list, but some of the things you already covered, so
Okay.
it should be too painful. Kind of to Stephanie's point of the why, and to Amber, like she talks about telling the story of the district. And so getting back to the description of why are we doing this, I think would be a good and beneficial asset to put here on the website, and
Okay.
when people are filling out the application, just so they can kind of understand, we're not doing it just to have these pretty shiny buildings, but
Yeah.
we're doing it because improvement needs to be made,
Yep.
academic spacing, class sizes, all those
Yep.
type of things, and what the district's expectations are for their educational experience for their students.
Yeah.
I think all that comes into play. And then I know you talked about building upon what went well.
Yeah.
Do you also have feedback about some challenges or maybe things that we would do differently this time than the first 2-phase task force? Have you gotten some feedback about that?
I think that's where we sort of inserted the resident side of it, not just have it be community organizations. They're very important. You have a lot of community organizations in Worthington, very active community up here, which is great. But we wanted to get beyond that a little bit and allow for the residents to get involved as well. So that was something that's different this time. There was quite a few things that went well the first time. We talked about that with the core group. So we are trying to kind of build upon that, but we have made some intentional decisions around some of that task force. And then I also think this The 4-part engagement is much more robust than what was done last time. My understanding is there was, some kind of open house meetings and kind of informational things and gathered some input. But the fact that there's 12 buildings, to go through and to make sure people are aware, and they all are in different kind of, ages and things. There's a lot more education that kind of has to happen as far as this one. So I think we've layered up that in a little bit more robust way, because like you said, it is a big deal.
Kelly, part of that conversation was us kind of reflecting on things that I don't want to use the word miss, but we could grow off of. And one of that is a website that is going to grow over time. That way people have access to that. And then also us being available to have conversations in different spaces with people, right? So going the hub route, opening our buildings to be able to have people from the outside come in and see what our buildings look like, but then also taking those conversations out to them as well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the advisory portion of the task force,
Yep.
you envision that, looking at your timeline, you're envisioning that will be selected after their first meeting?
Yeah, so we want the task force members to have an opportunity to sort of nominate either somebody on the task force or themselves to serve in that co-chair role, 5 to 6 that will join the core team. So we want to explain what that is, because it is more time, because the flow will be sort of task force meeting, and then maybe 2 weeks later, the advisory committee's meeting, and then we're kind of back into the information flow. So it is more meetings, it's more time dedicated to it. So we want to kind of explain that to them at that first meeting, and then we'll get that group hopefully seated pretty quickly so we can get them kind of up to speed.
Do you think, so when we did our portrait of a learner, we included students. Do you think that we'll include students in this task force, or?
So, yes, I think we have right now, we're hoping there'll be some interest, but we have a slot for like a 15 to 19-year-old, somebody who's gone through the school, kind of has memories of that elementary school, to give that kind of youth perspective. So right now, I think we would be looking for at least one to sort of serve in that role, yeah.
Okay. And then, so you talked about, thank you, I'm sorry. The diversity matrix, so kind of to what Stephanie and Sheena were pointing out. And are you looking at area? Because you could have representation from each school that isn't a representation of our school community. So
yes.
Just making sure that.
Yeah, we are going to ask on the application what their connection to the district is, but it's really a broader, like the boundary is the school district. It's not necessarily school sheds. So when we look at where people live within the district, we're going to make sure that those 12 are not all from like one area or one school. We'll be really careful to make sure that we're reaching out. This is an open application process, so we're going to do our best to, get the word out, and hopefully people will be interested. And a good problem to have is to have 50 people apply for 12. Then we have a good selection, and we can make sure we can put, again, it's a blind selection. We're gonna, we're not going to look at names. It's really about what their attributes are and how they fill in the diversity matrix. But it's nice to have a larger pool. And if we do have a lot of interest beyond, that we can really serve on that advisor or the task force, we have other ways we can engage them through like a stakeholder meeting or a special focus group meeting. So we'll make sure that their interest is not wasted. We want to encourage them to and get involved, and we'll have ways to do that.
Okay. Is that what makes it blind? Like you're not looking at names?
Yeah.
You're just looking at.
You were just looking at the attributes that they fill out in the
Gotcha.
application.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's helpful. Is this presentation going on the website at all? There's a date that's in.
Yeah, I saw that when I was saying it, I was scrambled. I think it says 26 and 27. Yeah, I will update that. Yes, but yeah, we can make that update and get that posted or send it back to you.
I promise I only have like 2 or 3 more. Just to confirm, the assessments and the space study, those have already been done. So this is data you're
Yes.
bringing in
Yes.
to the
Yep.
task force. That's cool. Thank you. I remember during phase 2 that there was like a little field trip to Upper Arlington, and I'm not saying that we go there, but for other school districts that have facilities that have been rebuilt recently or reconstructed recently, are we taking field trips again, or do you think did you find that beneficial last time?
Yeah, I'd be curious if anybody has, if that was super helpful, we can incorporate it. Right now, we are going to look at benchmarks and pull some of those examples in for that first round, but we can definitely think about and talk about a field trip opportunity as well, once we see what's out there and what might be a good one.
Did you, go ahead.
So early, we just want to gather where everybody is. This is a big, as everybody acknowledged, this is a big conversation, right? So as it gets closer to becoming clearer of potential directions, then those types of things absolutely are going to be a part of that conversation.
Okay.
But that's probably going to happen the second half of that. The first half is going to be gathering, all right, what do we do with this?
Yeah.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
going to be really where we roll up our sleeves and figure that out as a community.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
cool.
the first round's very generative. It's open-ended. We're really trying to seek out those values. And then once we hear from that, we'll start shaping up some choices, some scenarios, things like that. I'll have a better idea about where we're heading.
Okay. And do you need anything from us? I understand that we're doing the one-on-one interviews, but do you need us to collectively, do we need to vote on anything, or do we just come to a consent? I mean, do you need us to do that formality? Okay.
I think that we could have, are you looking at me or Trent?
Say it again. Oh, I'm looking at Trent, I'm sorry.
Okay, I was like, have an idea.
Sarah, thank you for this presentation and the help. I'm excited. This is a huge lift, right? It's a huge community lift. And so we'll make sure that we're paying attention to detail.
Yeah. Well, thank
for the
you.
information.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you, Kelly. Sheena?
Okay, some of my questions have also already been answered, and forgive me if I'm repeating them just in a different way. But thank you for being here, and thank you for making this presentation so comprehensive. So you talked about the stakeholders, and I want to know more about internal stakeholders and what that list looks like, and how we will be considering the impact they make. And I'm thinking about, and I think I might have seen something mentioned somewhere, but transportation, custodians, facilities, maintenance, et cetera. I mean, obviously it goes beyond that, but I'm
Yeah.
just curious, how are we thinking
Yeah,
about
we're
those
just at
pieces?
the beginning phases of this, so those are good. We'll take that input, and we'll be diving into that a little bit more with the core team. And then again, that task force, we want to get them going because we want to use them, right? So they're going to help us really fine tune, make sure we didn't miss anybody. So we're going to use them throughout that process. But I appreciate that feedback. We'll definitely take that into account.
Thank you. And let's see. I heard you say that Vicki will get a list of folks who are invited was it for the task force piece?
Yeah, it's the community organizations
community-
for the nomination component of the
Okay, so
task force.
for the individuals who are nominated, will they still have to complete the same application? Or is it at that point based on just, hey,
Yeah.
we're feeling you and we want to invite you?
It's a
into
little
this?
different, yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't have as much, because they're representing an interest or an organization, so it's not necessarily about the demographics for them. So we're more curious about what their group is. Can they commit somebody to kind of participate? So it's a little bit different, but it asks some of the same questions. But it's a little bit, there are two different forms.
Okay, and in that same vein, how complex is the general application? I know it looks like there's a place to show interest that's on the website, but in terms of the actual general application, is it very complex? Is it something that's easy to understand for third grade reading level?
Yeah, I hope it is. It should be. If it's not, we'll make it that way because it should be very accessible. But it's your basic, demographic information. We do have a question about their interests. We have a question about their connection to the school district, if they have kids in the school district. We have something about their occupation or former occupation to kind of understand what, skill sets or different things they kind of bring to the group. But it's not more than, I wouldn't say it'd take more than 5 or 10 minutes to fill
Okay,
it out.
great.
Yeah.
And in terms of participation from maybe medical professionals, and when I say that, I mean, not only in the special education side, but, potentially therapists or psychologists or people who can say that, not only from a place of, developmental differences, but just how students learn. Do we have professionals that can come in and talk about, the different nuances that maybe, we don't know about, but
Yeah.
based on maybe research, we can,
Yeah.
determine how our spaces should look or feel or be
feel.
designed.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, let us think about that and how we might incorporate
Sorry,
that.
I'm just throwing you.
Yeah, no, that's good. Keep them coming.
Let's see. Again, some of my questions have already been answered. So a big question I had is what's the actual decision-making criteria? So I think you've done a great job outlining how we'll engage people, but I'm just curious about the framework that we'll use to eventually evaluate the different options and outcomes, I guess I would say. So, are we looking, to Kelly's point about, educational outcomes, and I assume equity and accessibility are pieces that we're looking at, but, how do those pieces align with helping our advisors to determine,
Well, we're going to first go out and understand what's important to people, right, in this first round. So I think some of that's going to be built based on what we hear from folks. And so I don't know the answer to that yet, but I'm hoping it will become apparent as we go through and we hear what's important and what people value, then we can kind of look and see what that becomes as we start to get into the second. That's going to be more important in the second round, but it is important to kind of understand how we're evaluating or making decisions. So, but I think when we go out to the first round, we're going to hear what people care about, what people want to prioritize, where their values are, and we'll utilize that going forward.
Great. Let me see here. Will the number of the task force committee and the advisory committee, or, these two, will the numbers change based on maybe needs as the project goes on, or are you pretty set on?
It could, yeah. I think flexibility is key here. And we said kind of, maybe you can't see it there, but there's a little like sort of close to plus minus 50 and 12 to 15 because we want to make sure we get it right. And we want to make sure, and if that takes 52, then it's 52. If it's 45, then it's 45. But we want to make sure we've got the committee that's going to be right for this process and is representative. So yeah, there's some flexibility. Also, there's attrition that happens over time. We're going to try to get people to really commit to us, but this is a big lift. It's 2 years, and they're going to have to, kind of be involved. So, and things change, people move away, things like that. So, we will have to be a little bit flexible on that. But we're hoping if we outline those expectations early on, people will understand what they're getting themselves into. But yeah, we'll be flexible if necessary. We need to make some adjustments along the way. We can do that.
Awesome. And I don't know if this is a question, but nutrition, I think, is important to all of us, but, I think a place that you and I have really been focused on. So I hope that that's an area that is.
Cafeteria space.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
You made me think of one thing. If you could, we're not there yet. We just make a note, especially like when we start thinking about the hubs.
Yeah.
Can we make sure that those are translated or translatable, please?
Yes. Yeah, we do have the translation on the website and the accessibility widget as well that will do some things. So we'll be mindful of that. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. My list unfortunately didn't get shorter. It kept getting longer. You all would say something and then I'd be like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. So I apologize in advance. A few things though, if we could just talk about the website, because I think that Stephanie brought up some good points about the branding and, the Worthington brand is so strong. I do worry a little bit because, it's on the bottom and it's kind of buried. I do think we need to have it up top just to show, I understand what you're trying to do with the color scheme and everything, and it doesn't need to look exactly like Worthington branding, and I think it's fine that it has its own brand identity.
Yeah.
But I also think that people need to realize that it's not like a spoof website, that it's not something
Oh, I see.
that,
Yeah. Like a counter
that
group.
it's legit, this is a real process. So that would be my thought
Okay.
with that, is just to take that into consideration. I also think that Vicki and her team have done such a great job of chronicling the phase 2 process here recently, and it lives on its own website. You've got a paragraph here on your website, just what came from phase 1 and 2. I think that's a natural place to hyperlink
Back
get
to the
over to that. So if people do want to do a deeper dive, see where we've been, I think that could be something
Good.
to add to the website. The assessments, you said that those have already been done. I didn't see those on the web. Are like the building assessments? Is that
We don't have
I
the
love the profiles for each.
Yeah,
building,
we
by
try
the
to make
way.
it simple for like
Okay.
public consumption. We've got, and we can add more as we go through the process. The idea was it might add some interior photos for each one. This is just a starting point.
Okay.
But yeah, the assessments are good. They're very in depth. There might be some people that want to dive in, but we try to kind of keep it high level, at least at this point.
Okay.
Can we have the assessments?
I was gonna say,
Okay, thanks.
I think that that's going to be, as we roll this out to the public, they're going to be very interested in the individual buildings, their individual buildings, how
Yeah.
their building compares to other buildings.
Yep.
And that kind of leads me more into my bigger question that I've been swirling around the last couple days is just, we've said over and over, this is a big conversation, huge conversation. Is it too big of a conversation, I guess? And I know you're the expert on the
Yeah.
planning and the strategic, you've formulated this beautiful plan, and I'm not trying to poke holes into it. I just know that with 11 buildings, 12 buildings, however many we have there in the
Yeah.
elementary school, they're all different ages, as you
Yeah.
mentioned. Do we go down this path as a full phase 3, looking at all the buildings collectively, appoint people to the task force that maybe are in a building that's from 1990 and maybe not, like in the assessment, that much of a need of attention as some of the other buildings that are still using modular units for 20 years?
Yeah.
And do we get too far down the process, get engagement from those individual communities that then don't see any results? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like.
Yeah.
So can I jump in on that one? So, yeah, you're right. But I think we've got to start broad on this, and I think we need to pull in a larger conversation because it's not just about your individual building that you're
Yeah.
representing. You're also representing the concept of what a district can stomach. Right? So that has to be a part of this conversation. So it is going to be us looking at individual buildings and asking, what do we do over time with these buildings? But we've got to step back and also ask collectively as a community, what can we support?
Yeah.
So that's going to be a giant conversation. And to Stephanie's point, right, phase 3 is what we're calling this. But you can look at this and go, it could be phase 3, 4, 5, 6. But that is really going to be driven through a conversation from the task force that is going to be representing potentially an individual building. But they're also going to be representing themselves as a taxpayer. They're going to be representing their neighbors to ask, what can we actually do here as we look at how massive this conversation is going to be?
Yeah, it is hard because it is individual buildings, but we're really asking people to really think about, and Jeff said that the district as a whole, what's in the best interest of the future of the district, right? We want, and that everyone has an interest in the district because a good school district, helps all different parts of community life and makes a good community. So even if people don't have kids in the district, they'll want to get involved and have a say because it's still, about their larger community. So I think some of that messaging is, really important, that it's bigger than just, we're going to be talking about individually buildings, but we're really going to try to come at it at this higher level.
And I mean, that's where it started. Like the first phase was the whole district. Like, what do we do? Where do we start? And so that was a huge conversation that has landed us to where we are today. So I do think that it can still be broken down a little bit along the way, but the big conversation should be, what is the path in general? I think it's helpful.
Thank you. And that's I think, great to hear. I think that we just need to manage expectations a little bit is all I'm asking.
Yeah,
Just,
definitely.
articulate exactly that.
Yep.
And I know you will, but that's
Yeah.
just kind of been what's been swirling around in my
Yeah,
head.
good. Appreciate that.
Let's see, what else do I have here? So the school, Jeff, I think you said this, but I just want to make sure that I'm clear. There will be open tours to the public, right? We'll have the school hop with the
Yep.
task force, but
Yeah.
then those facilities will be available.
Yes, for tours and to have some engagement activities, yeah.
Okay. And this commitment is through 2 years, and the architects will come along later to be appointed on the task force? Is that?
No, they'll join at the beginning
Okay.
to just be that. It's a small advisory role, but we want to make sure that as we have conversations that that we have somebody that can kind of maybe offer some realistic, manage expectations again about what things cost nowadays. There's going to be conversations about renovation, replacement, different things, and so having that sort of expertise on the task force we felt was important.
So I want to clarify on that, though. So the architects who just did assessments on all the elementary are not the architects we've worked with on phase 1 and phase 2 to build our schools. So we wanted a third party who wasn't potentially going to do architectural work for us in the future to do that assessment. That's who will sit on and provide guidance and conversation around is it renovate? Is it replace? What's the different cost per square footage that you would expect on the, give that information. But it's not the architects that we may select in the future that could do this project. That would be a bid process once we've gone through a bond issue and secured funds and know what we're going to build. Some of the things that are priorities for this board that I hear you talking about would come in the design phase, not really the decision phase on what's going to happen. But when we sit down with teachers and create or what are the educational specs that need to happen in a new school and go through a design phase to actually build something, that is where some of this feedback, which is a little separate, it's like a next phase from this community engagement process and task force process.
Thank you.
But I do just want to clarify, it's not
No,
our
I think I was a little
architects,
confused on that. That's
but
good.
it is, we do need experts in the room that can say, this is what something costs, this is what you can expect, this is what you really could do or you can't do,
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
thank you. The people who do get appointed to the task force, will they live on the website somewhere too? Names,
Yeah,
photos,
yeah.
communities they
Yeah.
represent, so the public can get kind of a snapshot as to.
Yes, definitely. Where we have right now, like launching the application and information about it, that will become like a meet the task force section. And so, names and so people can kind of see who's representing them, definitely.
Okay, perfect. The engagement hubs, can you talk a little bit about like what that, is that, it's an in-person engagement, right? Is that like a
think of
town
it-
hall sort of thing?
No, it's more passive in the sense that we're like popping up some displays, some engagement that's self-directed with signage, and it can exist at like, say, the community center or a different kind of gathering place at the around the community. We're still figuring out where the best locations, and I'd like to ask the task force that, quite honestly,
Yeah.
too, to understand where they think that. But something that's open, has good hours, and that people can stop in on their own time. They will be designed to be standalone. So imagining, some display boards, some activities, and everything's very well designed and articulated in a way that people can kind of follow along and do it on their own. But those engagement hubs work really well when you can staff them for a portion of the time. So during we did one at a YMCA in another community, and when they had a lot of classes starting and stop, the evening time they have classes and people coming and going, we had some folks from our committee staffing it to say hi to people and kind of draw them in. And so it's flexible, we can, do it, but it'll be there and people can drop in at their own time. They might not want to do that in person versus online, so it gives them that opportunity.
Thank you. I think the last question I had then, and I think, Stephanie, I think this is what you were bringing up too, is the board's representation on this task force. And you have one individual. Do you envision that being the same individual each time? Or is that something where we could, because I'm assuming you want to be involved in this, and I feel like we would all want some type of.
Yeah, I think
Presence.
the impetus behind my question was just making sure that we have the opportunity to get, as a board, get as much information as possible so we hear kind of what you were saying, like the task force may hear different stuff when
Yeah.
they read the feedback, and
Yeah.
just that kind of
Yeah.
giving us access to as much information as possible.
Yeah. I think ideally it's one, so you can kind of live it and see it and you have that iterative. But if you all decide you'd rather rotate that, so you all have some more access into it, transparency is really important in any process for engagement. And so after our engagement rounds, we'll put all the input into a database, and we oftentimes make that available on the website if the general public or anybody wants to look through every comment verbatim that was either submitted through an online survey or on a Post-it note on a board or on a comment card. We will take all that and organize it. So I think there's some benefit to having one person that's kind of that liaison and that kind of consistent, but if you all feel differently, I'm happy to talk about that.
And I don't know what the best way for us to discuss that, if we should do it tonight, if we should think about it and come back, or.
I think maybe one of my questions is, whether or not that, so I see the role of the board kind of twofold, right? So we are consumers of information, but then if we're a representative on the task force, then I guess my assumption is that one representative, whether or not it's the same person, is kind of participating in the conversations.
Yeah.
I think that might be helpful to be consistent. I'm not sold on it, but I see us needing representative that has a voice, but also that passive piece. I think we need both of those things. So we may just need to think about how we accomplish just those goals.
Yeah, that's fair.
And are the task force meetings open to the public, or it's like, is there a spectator section? I'm just thinking like.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not engaged at the table. But
Yeah,
just-
I mean, we can frame them up how we
advocating for it,
want,
yeah,
but
so
I
just-
think unless there's some rules here, I'm not sure, but in some communities, when we do working for local forms of government, they are public meetings, and so we have the table set up for the steering committee or the task force, and then we have some viewing, and people can come and they can watch, but they cannot participate, but they can watch. So we can definitely do that if that's of interest.
And I was just thinking with that, there could be like a live stream that we could each watch or something. If, there could be a way to hear things without being the.
Yeah. I think it's important that the task force feels comfortable and empowered, to really speak and share candidly. And so I think some of the optics some of these conversations play into that. So I think we just be mindful of how that, and letting them do their work. This is a community driven. I mean, this is the process that is up for, which I commend you for. I mean, you could go and just do this work kind of behind closed doors, but you want to make sure that the engagement is accessible. You want to make sure the community is engaged and involved. And so part of that is letting that process kind of play out and trusting kind of that process, and then, bringing it back to you all for updates.
Gotcha.
So I will just say historically, in 2016, I think a board member or maybe two were on the task force, but often all five showed up. They can't participate if that happens. And it's really hard for board members when you're in the room and people ask you questions not to participate. So that's the challenge that you have to work through. But certainly there was a need at that time to also listen to the conversation and hear the things that are being weighed and things that were being challenged and all those types of things. So it's just something for you guys to, you have some time before you figure that out. But it is pretty critical that you don't engage if you're all there, because eventually this recommendation does come to a Board of Education. But certainly understand why people in previous boards wanted to hear the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard to again, another reason why I wouldn't raise my hand, because I don't know that I would be able to articulate fully all the feedback. I think that would be one of you that can do that really well, that has that skill. But I think that's the benefit of maybe having a second person, having two people, even if it's just that second person is an alternate, and if they can make it, they can make it. If they can't, they can't. But I do like having the consistency of one person hearing the same conversation, or how the conversations are building, how the conversations are evolving. That's just my input on how, but I like the more than one.
I like what you're saying, and what's kind of rattling in my brain is, I think we can be quiet, but maybe not. Maybe if we had a point person and an alternate, I feel pretty strongly that only one person should verbally participate, because I don't want that to turn into even perception that the board is trying to direct anything. So one person, but I agree that it's nice to have that second set of ears to say, this is what I took away. And so maybe we think about structuring it in that way. And honestly, if there's a point person and alternate, you could rotate roles if you're both able to come. Like one time it's this person, just a thought. I don't think we should have more than one board member speaking and representing the board.
That makes sense.
Okay. I think those are all the questions I had. Is
I had
anyone
one more
else?
question.
Yeah.
When it talked about the school hops, it mentioned benchmarking, and I was curious, are we only using regional or local benchmarking? Or are we considering maybe beyond that, And that's just the thought that I
Yeah,
had.
no, I think we can definitely go broader. I think some of the local is important for people just to understand which
Yeah.
districts have kind of done things they might be seeing in the news or kind of been past it or something. So, but we can definitely look broader. I think obviously looking at national best practices and sort of benchmarks is a good thought.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank
All
you
right.
so much for being here tonight.
Yeah,
It's a
thank
very
you.
exciting
Yeah,
time.
I'm super excited to be on this
Thrilled to
journey
work
with
with
you
you.
all. So thank you for your time.
Okay, that brings us to D1 on the agenda, Superintendent's Report.
Okay, so thank you. We are ready to begin the 2026 school year on August 19th. That is coming fast. Families should check their email for important back-to-school information, which can also be found on the district website. So normally for my report, I'd share an item or two in each of our 4 vision areas. But this evening, I'd like to use my report for a different purpose. So 10 years ago, on August 12th, 2016, the Worthington Kilbourne High School girls water polo team was traveling to an out-of-town tournament to play in Napoleon, Ohio on a Friday morning. A passenger van carrying the players and family members from Worthington Kilbourne collided with a grain truck just after 10 a.m. Worthington Kilbourne High School students Betsy Fisher, Melanie Fisher, Samantha Fink, and Sydney Zolich were injured in the accident. 19-year-old Courtney Fisher suffered fatal injuries and was pronounced dead at the scene. So Courtney was a 2015 graduate of Worthington Kilbourne. When I became the superintendent of schools in October of 2014, Worthington Schools had a student board member from each high school. Courtney served in that role, and in fact, she sat each meeting in the chair that is just to my right of where Sheena sits today. Thus, for the 2015 school year, our board got to know Courtney and hear her insights about school. Thus, when this accident occurred, it reverberated throughout our entire community, but also was something that our board and administration experienced on a personal level. So water polo is a tight-knit community, and the Napoleon community has been continually supportive. Our teams will once again travel to Napoleon on August 23rd, later this month. But when they do, they will compete in the Courtney Fisher Sprint Off Classic, which this year is honoring 10 years of Courtney's legacy. And athletes and families can purchase Courtney Fisher tournament shirts. They're extra special this year, featuring an image of Courtney playing polo to honor the 10-year anniversary of her legacy left behind in the water polo community. So tonight in my report, I want to publicly thank the water polo community in Napoleon, and on behalf of Worthington Schools, and say to the Fisher family that we've not forgotten Courtney for their loss. President Skinner, that's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Bowers. Any discussion, any questions?
So the shirt is that something we can order? Is it?
So it is something that can be ordered, but only picked up in Napoleon.
Okay.
So
But if I know
is
a
a challenge,
water polo
but I can
player?
send that link out, and it's I can pass a picture to you. I do have a picture of the shirt here that is pretty special. So.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you for sharing that.
And thank you for just saying her name too. I think that something that stuck with me, I went to the Pentagon one time to tour the 9/11 attack, and there was something on the wall there that talked about how we all die 2 deaths. One is when our physical body dies, and the second is when people stop saying our names. And I think bringing her name into the space 10 years later is really a powerful moment, so thank you. TJ, Treasurer's Report.
Thank you. I do want to answer a few questions about what came up tonight. So August 9th, 2028 is the deadline to file with the Board of Elections. for the November 7th electorate. However, as Ms. Davis indicated, depending on how we fund this, if part of that is a bond issue, that backs it up, because if you recall, there's multiple resolutions that have to be passed. So practically speaking, that's probably July or late June. July 10th is the deadline to file the first resolution on a bond issue. So there's that. I would also say, just from my seat, I've been thinking about this a lot. Like in my mind, phase 3 is about the plan for elementary schools. Then we will take that plan and determine how we're going to fund it, and that can be one of a variety of ways. And so that funding it can be broken up into multiple phases. It could be a bond issue, it could be a permanent improvement levy, it could be an income tax, as Bexley's doing. So I think until we know what we're doing in totality, to Mr. Maddox's point, we kind of got to wait and see and determine how we're going to fund it. The July monthly report is up on our website. There's no real variances, as Ms. Davis pointed out earlier. But I do want to talk about in the back, the medical insurance fund has been running slightly ahead of schedule, so it's been feeling like we're doing pretty good. However, I met with our insurance consultant last night, and we have a handful of higher number than expected high claimants that have bubbled up in the past month or two. And so we could be potentially facing a double-digit increase again, which is above what is in our negotiated agreements, which, as you all are familiar with last year, could potentially trigger a union vote and some plan design changes. I am hopeful to try to walk that back. So I have pushed up our insurance committee meeting to next week. We may end up deciding to delay when the board approves rates to try to get another month of data in, if that helps us. So long story short, we are working toward that. But at the end of the day, it's an issue that every employer is facing. Price Waterhouse puts out a pretty good independent survey and predicts the future of health insurance, and their trend is now above 10%. In the past, it was 8%. So, the employer-provided health care is under a lot of pressure, and we're not immune from that, unfortunately. So we'll come back to the board after the insurance committee meets next week and have a plan, but that's where we're at with that. And then lastly, I wanted to speak on tonight's agenda is to restate our 403B plan on the consent agenda. This is just procedural to align us with some changes from the Secure Act and the CARES Act for compliance with IRS rules. We're not doing anything different. It's just a compliance issue. So President Skinner, that is my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Board committee, any questions for TJ? Sorry. Okay. Board committee reports and announcements. Anyone have anything?
I don't really have anything other than to echo Trent's email, just congratulating the staff and all the volunteers who participated in the style drop, the resource fair, the first-time bus riders. What am I missing?
Those are the big ones.
Yeah, those are the big ones. Jen presenting. Yeah, it was great. And just to see those numbers and how the folks came out, we volunteered, and it was good to see all the kids' smiling faces and know that we were providing resources to our neighbors and our community and beyond, actually. And so thank you for that. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that.
Yeah, that was on my list. I haven't had a whole lot of committee meetings, but a thank you to everybody that participated in the resource fair and the style drop and the bus rider, but a huge thank you to Toya for driving this over multiple years, and just the breadth of impact that those 2 days had on families in the community that will go on and on and on throughout the school year and make a difference in families is, I had my little with me, and it was good for her. She helped hang hangers, but it bubbles out. It's such a big deal, just beyond that day. And so, I'm super proud to be part of this district, but was really proud to be part of that event and to see that the impact that we're making as a district. So thank you. I did attend, I was not at the last board meeting, and so prior to that, I had attended the Worthington Municipal Planning meeting where the Crawford Hoying Group presented their plan for some development down at the by the sledding hill on Wilson Bridge. Sledding hill. So I wanted to share a little bit of information. Obviously, it's within the district. And so, you know, I know Trent and TJ have been working closely with the city on a variety of areas within that and other developments, but I thought I'd share a couple things with you. So they were very clear that this is not a new Bridge Park. And they even talked about some of the lessons that they learned from Bridge Park and that development and how they will bring that forward and make this more Worthington. Speaking of the sledding hill, they said they were keeping the sledding hill because they understood that that was an important part of that area. So just little things like that. But just as they are envisioning it now, as it applies to us, they're looking at, and again, this can change as we go through the planning process, somewhere around 590 units of housing, over 200,000 square feet of office space, and then somewhere in the neighborhood of 290 hotel rooms. Again, estimates that can change. That gives you an idea of the scope of the project. Some of that housing will be senior housing as well, so it's nice to see a diversity of housing options coming to the district, so that was encouraging to see as well. And then they just talked a lot about connecting it to the bike space and the green space in the area. So, you know, it was a great presentation. There's a lot more to go between now and then. If everything goes smoothly, looking at breaking ground in 2027, and so really kind of getting rolling in 2028, which is when we would start to see some actual, you know, buildings and development and housing, and they're doing it in phases. But encouraging to see some things moving in that space. So I just wanted to share that, and that's all I have.
Kelly?
Hi, thank you that's helpful to, I had not listened to that presentation, so thank you for sharing that. Style drop, you know, it's just phenomenal, right? And so the impact on families for sure, and also like all of our staff that were there, teacher staff that interacted with families, helped families, carried out bags, picked out shirts, cheered on when the kids are holding up their shirt, like, is this cute? Like, you know, giving style advice, seeing principals walk in and seeing students see the principal after the whole summer and just being so excited, both parties being so excited to see each other. It just reminds me of the good people that we have here in our district. And so I thank you for the tremendous amount of time that you put into this event and the care that you have for our community and beyond. Just very grateful for you and all of the people that surrounded you and all of the people that volunteered. I just love, you know, I love collective collaboration, blah, blah, blah. So thank you. Went to the teacher welcome. We were all there. Tiana did a wonderful job on day one. Welcoming staff and just relating to them, right? Because it was her day one and it's their day one. So I'm sure that was a wonderful week. I know you guys put together a great program for that. And so I appreciate how we give bus tours, which I'm coming on the next one, around the district just to give them a view of how like massive our district is, right? And how all the areas that it covers. So thank you for all of your hard work and Jeff Maddox's hard work and the rest of the administration. I did have an OSBA Central Region meeting. I mentioned last time that the previous Central Region manager has left that role, and so they are in the process of hiring a new Central Region manager. They hopefully made a decision either last Friday or early this week. So as soon as I hear who that individual is, I'll let you guys know. But also to let you know that the OSBA Central Region Fall Conference is September 16th. It is at the Villa Milano, which people sometimes are like, oh, but I'm like, ooh, it's down the street. So it's just helpful. So it's so close to us. So if you want to register.
Say that date again.
September 16th. If you would like to register, please let TJ and Amber know, and Priscilla, and they can get you registered for that. And the last thing is that Amy Lloyd and I were able to participate in a town hall with Councilmember Chris Weiss. He does his Wednesdays with Weiss, and so he invited us to join him. And it was basically very interactive conversation held at the Northwest Library, just about our overlap, how our entities overlap, our similarities, our differences, shared resources. I'm using the example of like sidewalks. We all care about that. We care about our students getting to school safely, and they as council members care about, making sure that there's connectivity in their cities. So just very high level conversation, nothing like super detailed on my end. From a district standpoint, I think I got one question. There was a Q&A time where people filled out cards to ask questions, and I got one. But most of the questions were for Chris because they were questions about development, especially where we were located. There's some development going in there, and so a lot of community members had questions about that. But just really helpful because he too is a Worthington parent, and so he, has a little bit of skin in the game, and so really being able to listen to community members. But there was leadership there from the library, leadership there from the pantry, leadership from Sharon Township was really nice for people to come out, and even a school board member from Dublin came since, we're right there in that. So I felt like people really received it well. People really appreciated the dialogue between the three of us. So just as we continue to collaborate, there was just I think it was very helpful. Again, very high level. I made sure to, do my disclaimer. I'm here for Kelly Davis. But just really good. I learned things. I learned about resources that are available for our Columbus residents that I didn't know about, that we had access to, like a community liaison person that can help you, connect you to other resources. And so she was there to engage in that conversation. So yeah, it was just really helpful and beneficial. I look forward to the next one. That's all I have.
So I think when I think about just, it seems like the last few days, so many of the people in this room and around this table, we've all been together recently because of all of the events that you all have mentioned. And I'm just so appreciative of this team. I'm so appreciative of my fellow board members, how everybody just shows up for this community consistently and with all the heart that they have, Toya, and you could have taken that event and accepted all those donations at the beginning of the summer and just put some clothes out on a table and called it a day, but you didn't. You took what was just a clothing drive and transformed it into just this experience that I can't even put into words. I really can't, because just standing in there and the languages that were swirling around me of the families who were there, the people, the excitement, just, the kids so excited to get a new backpack and a new first day of school outfit. And, you had everything so organized, and I don't think I can, again, give this justice for anyone who wasn't in the space. But all the volunteers who were there, the principals, the teachers, it was some hard work. We were sweating, we were running around. There was a lot that needed to be done. It was a long day on both Friday and Saturday, but it couldn't have happened without you as the mastermind and without all of the hands that made that work. So I'm so excited for next year and the year after, because I think that we had a lot of, things that came to light this year that we can learn from and build it and make it bigger. We had haircuts this year that was new. We had the resource fair that was in the same building. That facility is fantastic. There's so much potential there. It's so huge. How can we grow this event and serve even more of our community? But yeah, bravo Toya and anyone else who showed up to make that happen. I can't wait to see what the future of that is. And the new staff orientation, was that really day one for you? So Tiana just killed it, and with her Britney Spears mic, and had the entire thing memorized. I was just so impressed. You had no teleprompter. You had no anyone speaking the words into your ear, your IFB or anything. It was really impressive to see, just from a public speaking perspective, but also just the heart that went into that event. that, these are new staff to our district, and they came here for a reason. They chose Worthington, as you talked about, and I hope they feel the excitement that was in that room of just being here in this district. It's a very, very special place, and I think that has all been in display in the last few days. And I'm just thrilled to be doing the work with you all. One other thing that I was going to so I had coffee with Rep. Samani at some point, and since we've last met, so I was just going to let you all know that I asked her once she gets on the other side of the election and we start going into lame duck to come back and sort of do, just a preview of like what's to come at the end of the year with the legislature, because we do have some bills that are pending and they have until December 31st to get those through. So she is on it. And we can talk about adding that at some point to the schedule. But yeah, I think that's all I had. You mentioned Chris White. I was going to give him a shout out. He was the one that Keisha Gunn was telling me with the resource fair. He was the one that helped them secure the grant that allowed all the school supplies. So the Alliance for Black Families and Educators, they were giving out free school supplies at the resource fair. That was another part of the wonderful event that was happening, but that was part of our collaboration with the City of Columbus, and Columbus Public Health was there. So I had a good conversation with Kelly. I remember that because it was another Kelly.
Kelly with an I.
Yes.
I introduced
another
myself
Kelly
to her.
with an I. But she had she was telling me just about, like you said, about the services that are in Columbus. We have majority of our families in Columbus, so lots of opportunities for collaboration. So, yay, Chris White. Thank you for your help. So moving along, we have the consent agenda. Dr. Bowers.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda. This is items F1 through H2. In section F, you'll see the fiscal minutes and modifications along with the restatement of the 403B plan that TJ mentioned earlier. In section G, you'll see the personnel items for this time. And in section H, you'll see acceptance of donations and then one additional student added to the impractical busing resolution that you passed at the last meeting. So the recommendation is items F1 through H2, please.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, any questions about anything on the consent agenda?
Can we pull out, this is so procedural. Not turned on. This is so procedural, but I wasn't at the meeting for F1. So should we pull that out so I can abstain from that vote and vote on the others?
We can't venture.
Do I need to make a motion to vote? So can I make a motion to pull F1 out for separate vote?
Second.
A motion and a second.
Thank you.
Any discussion about that motion? Okay. Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Abstain?
Mrs. Costa Flowers.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. So do we now vote on the approval of the minutes, or that was the individual vote for?
I would vote on the original consent without the minutes and then vote on the minutes.
Okay.
So this is the original motion that's been amended without the minutes.
So I didn't need to abstain.
You didn't need to
That's
abstain,
fine,
yeah, but
sorry.
that's okay.
It still passes.
Okay, so I believe we have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. The approval of the minutes has now been removed from that.
Okay.
So this would be the vote for just
Everything without.
the consent, yes, without the approval. So
Got it.
Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Costa Flowers.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Motion carries. And now we have a vote on the approval of the minutes.
Yep. So I would recommend that the Board of Education approve item F1, approval of minutes, please.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Cusick, please call the roll.
Ms. Harless.
Now I abstain.
Mrs. Costa Flowers.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes, motion carries.
That's a good call.
All right, so now that brings us to the request questions, concerns from the board.
I actually, when you were mentioning Chris Weiss and the collaboration, it reminded me that we never circled back around to the calendar meeting with the city. and with Worthington. I mean, obviously, we can include Columbus as well, because it'll be good partnership, especially as you mentioned that. And so I want to bring that to the table again, so that we can maybe nail down a day. Let me know what you all think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we designated Stephanie as
Yes,
sort of the.
well, I can, yeah, and I can
Yeah.
work with, I know I can work directly with Robin.
Perfect.
And if we want to bring dates back to our next meeting, maybe I'll just bring a handful of those and we can talk then.
Fantastic, that
Okay.
sounds great.
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Any other requests, concerns from the board? No? All right. Moving on to calendar. Our next meeting will be after the first day of school, and we will all be re-energized and ready for our new school year. On August 24th, 6:30 here at the WEC, we'll talk about the financial forecast with Treasurer Cusick. And then we will have 2 meetings in September, September 14th and September 28th. And that brings us to K1, which is our,
I have a quick question.
yes,
So have we talked about presentations? Are you, Dr. Bowers, are you putting that together about what presentations?
Yeah, so I have a schedule that I was going to review with Stephanie and Amber at
Okay.
our next agenda prep, and we'll just see where it goes.
Okay, thank you.
sounds good. Now I would like to recommend a motion to enter into executive session to discuss the employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of an employee.
So moved.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Cusick, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes,
Ms. Harless.
yes.
Mrs. Costa Flowers.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
motion carries. We are now in executive session. Thank you.